They told me I was overreacting, but nothing prepares you for the moment you discover the man you funded, fed, defended, and trusted has quietly erased you from your own life. I used to believe betrayal arrived like thunder, loud, violent, impossible to ignore. But mine came disguised as a calm conversation on a warm autumn morning, sunlight falling across my kitchen table as if the universe itself had no idea what was about to collapse. My name is Marla Jennings, and after more than 2 decades of holding my marriage together with patience and optimism, I learned a truth sharp enough to carve me open. It started with something so small, so ordinary, that at first I brushed it aside. My husband, Evan, slid into the kitchen wearing that absent-minded expression he always wore when he was already thinking about something else. He kissed my cheek the way a person might greet a polite acquaintance, then grabbed his coffee mug. By the way, he said casually, my family finalized the retreat in Savannah. They are keeping it pretty intimate this year. I remember smiling. I remember stirring honey into my tea. I remember feeling genuinely excited. His sister had been planning this family retreat for months, and I had spent hours researching lodging, calling coordinators, booking transportation for his parents, his aunt, and even his cousin's new girlfriend. I had wired nearly $8,000 earned through my freelance design work, without hesitation, because that is what wives do, right? We make things happen. We fill gaps other people pretend not to see. So, I said gently, do you want me to finalize our room at the inn this afternoon? Evan froze, just for half a beat, long enough for instinct to whisper something cold at the base of my spine. He cleared his throat. Actually, they decided it's better to limit it to blood family this year. Space issues. Complications. You know how my mother gets. There it was. A clean slice right across the center of my chest. Blood family. As if the woman who had held his hand through every setback, who had carried the weight of his difficult mother for 20 years, as if that woman did not count. I set my tea down very slowly. Evan, I said, I paid for everyone's rooms, including yours. He nodded, eyes already drifting toward the window like he wished the conversation would float away with the breeze. I know, sweetheart. And thank you. Truly. You always handle these things so well. It just turned out complicated. They thought you might want a quiet week to yourself. A quiet week. While his family toasted each other in the warm glow of a southern sunset. While I sat alone in a house I had scraped, saved, and sacrificed to keep. I felt something inside me shift, not break, exactly, but realign, like a picture frame knocked just a little crooked by a passing storm. I see. I whispered. He misread my quiet for acceptance. He always did. Evan talked for a few more minutes, his voice drifting in and out like dull static. Something about logistics. Something about tradition. Something about his mother wanting to avoid extra drama. I stared at him across the table, this man with whom I'd shared nearly half my life. I remembered nights I stayed up sewing cushions for his mother's favorite bench. I remembered the time I canceled my own client meeting to drive him across town for a conference he claimed would change his career. I remembered how many times I had woven my dreams around his, believing we were building something together, but as he spoke, as he stumbled through half-truths and soft evasions, I felt a clarity settling over me, a deep, cold understanding that nothing about this moment was accidental. People do not exclude you by mistake. They do it by decision. He finished talking, kissed the top of my head, and left for work, humming under his breath. A man utterly unbothered by the fact he had just erased me from a family I had supported for decades. The second the door closed, I let my hands fall into my lap. They were trembling. My breath came out in shallow bursts, the kind you release after narrowly avoiding a crash. My phone buzzed. It was Lena, my closest friend, asking if I wanted to join her for brunch. I typed back, can't talk. Something's wrong. I think Evan just cut me out of the Savannah trip. Seconds later, her reply came, tell me everything. Now. I didn't. Not yet. I couldn't. The truth was still prickling beneath my skin, too raw, too humiliating. Instead, I stood, walked to the living room, and stared at the stack of printed confirmations I had made for his family. My handwriting was on every page. My credit card covered every expense. My love had paid for my own exclusion. That realization hit me with such force that for a moment, I genuinely forgot how to breathe. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, but I had no proof, only instinct. And that instinct whispered that if Evan had gone this far, if he had calmly erased me from his family's plans, then something darker was hiding just beneath the surface. For the first time in many years, I felt fear, not fear of being alone, fear of what I might find if I kept digging, fear of the woman I might become once the digging was done. If you think being cut from a family trip is the worst thing a husband can do, just wait. I had no idea that this tiny crack in my marriage was about to split wide open, revealing secrets sharp enough to tear apart 20 years of loyalty. Before long, I would uncover messages never meant for my eyes, lies crafted with precision, and a betrayal so calculated it would make every woman question the meaning of trust. If you want to see exactly how far Evan went, and how far I had to descend to reclaim my life, follow this series. You will not believe what happens next. The moment I opened his laptop, my heartbeat stuttered, because right then, I realized this wasn't just about a family retreat. This was about a man who'd quietly rewritten our entire marriage. I didn't plan to investigate my husband. Women like me, women over 50 who've spent decades being reliable, reasonable, forgiving, don't just wake up one day and decide to crack open the truth. But betrayal has a sound. It's quiet. It's the soft click of a man walking out the door after lying straight to your face. It's the echo of 2 decades of compromises. It's the dull throb of intuition rising from a place you've ignored for far too long. That afternoon, after Evan left for work, I walked through our house in a fog. Every room felt staged, almost artificial, as though the life I thought I'd built had simply been a set constructed for my comfort. His coffee cup still sat on the counter, a thin ring of beige clinging to the edge. The travel itinerary I'd printed lay neatly stacked on the table. Everything looked normal. Everything was wrong. I thought about calling Lena. I thought about packing a bag. But instead, I sat at Evan's desk and stared at his laptop. We had shared passwords for years. Early in our marriage, he had insisted it was a gesture of trust. Transparency keeps us strong, he'd said. I typed his password with shaking fingers. IT still worked. The screen blinked to life, cold, blue, revealing rows of unread messages and folders he thought I would never have reason to open. For a moment, I simply stared. Then I typed Savannah into the search bar. Emails filled the screen. Dozens. Conversations I had never seen. Thread after thread between Evan and his mother, his sister, even his cousin. But the first one that opened nearly stopped my heart. From Evan to his mother. Subject: about Marla. Let's just keep her out this year. She doesn't need to be involved. It's easier if everyone sticks to the plan. Easier. A word that sliced straight down my spine. I scrolled. His mother had replied, Evan, this is going to hurt her. You know it will. He responded, she'll be fine. She's been overly emotional lately. Honestly, she might appreciate the space. Overly emotional. A phrase men use when they want to dilute a woman's humanity into something inconvenient. My stomach twisted. My chest tightened. I wasn't prepared for what came next, because the next email wasn't about me at all. It was about a woman. A woman I didn't recognize. At first, her initials filled the subject line. RKA name I had never heard, but the tone, oh, I recognized that tone. Warm. Familiar. Intimate in the way people are when they assume no one is watching. I clicked, the message thread loaded, and I felt my world tilt slightly. R.K. Did you tell her you're skipping the retreat? It would be weird if she finds out from someone else. Evan, working on it. She thinks it's a family-only issue. She never questions anything. It'll blow over. She never questions anything. That sentence hit harder than any betrayal, because that was true, had been true. For years, I had spent so long believing loyalty meant softness. Cooperation. Reason. I had smoothed over every rough corner he carved into our marriage. I had swallowed every slight and rearranged myself to make him comfortable, and he knew it. That was the cruelty buried beneath the lies. He counted on it. I kept scrolling. Their messages stretched back months. Inside jokes, secret plans, meetups disguised as work dinners. One message chilled me more than the others. Once the retreat is over, We'll have actual time together without her hovering. Can't wait. Hovering.as though I were some bothersome shadow rather than the woman who held his life together while he drifted from ambition to ambition. As though I were the obstacle in his way. Images flashed like lightning. Nights I'd stayed awake waiting for him to come home. Dinners I'd cooked while he pretended exhaustion. Moments I'd believed his stress was about work instead of guilt. My breath grew shallow. The air too thick, my skin too tight. I pushed back from the desk and walked to the window. Outside, the neighborhood moved as it always did, neighbors walking dogs, kids riding bikes, mail trucks growling past, a world unaware that mine had just cracked open. For a long time, I did nothing, then something inside me, something dormant, something fierce, lifted its head. I reopened the laptop and kept digging. Every message, every email, every digital breadcrumb he thought he had swept away. I collected. I opened our joint bank account. Charges popped up like warning signs I had ignored. Hotel stays, overpriced dinners, boutique wine shops, a riverfront bistro we had never visited together, every one of them dated on days he had claimed to be working late. My throat burned. I kept scrolling. Near the bottom of the statements, tucked between grocery charges and utility bills, lay something unexpected, a payment to a retreat center in Savannah made 3 months before the family had even finalized their plans. He had known all along. He had always planned to exclude me, not because of space. Not because of family tradition, because he wanted the freedom to be someone else, someone unburdened by a wife who had given him 20 years of loyalty. I closed the laptop softly. The anger didn't come yet. That would arrive later. What came instead was clarity. A cold, clean understanding that if I didn't protect myself now, no one would. I picked up my phone and texted Lena, I need you. I need a place to stay. I need to think. She texted back immediately, my door is open. Come now. But before I left, I did one last thing. I opened a new folder on my desktop. I titled it Truth, and into it, I dragged every screenshot, every bank statement, every message, every piece of a life I had thought I understood, not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted the truth to be undeniable, because someday soon, I would need proof of who he really was. And proof of who I could become once I finally walked away. If you think discovering the messages was the breaking point, you're wrong. The real shock came when I learned exactly how long Evan had been planning a life without me, and who he intended to build it with. What I uncovered next didn't just expose an affair. It revealed a man capable of orchestrating his escape while using my loyalty to fund it. In the next chapter, you'll see the moment everything snapped into focus, the moment I stopped being the quiet, accommodating wife and became someone he never expected. Trust me, what happens next will make every woman rethink the meaning of betrayal. The night I left my home, I didn't pack anger, I packed evidence. Because once a woman finally sees the truth behind a man's lies, she becomes someone he can no longer manipulate. Lena opened her front door before I even knocked. Her eyes scanned my face, red, swollen, too still. Oh, Marla, she whispered, pulling me inside as though she could shield me from the truth now pulsing beneath my skin. I set my tote bag on her couch. Inside it were only the essentials, my laptop, a folder of printed screenshots, and the sweater I'd grabbed in a daze. Everything else, my clothes, my jewelry, 2 decades of accumulated life, sat back in that house like artifacts belonging to a woman who no longer existed. Lena brought tea, but my hands were shaking too much to hold the cup. She didn't push. She simply sat beside me, a silent witness. When I finally spoke, my voice sounded unfamiliar, calm in a way that wasn't calm at all. He's been lying for months, I said. Maybe longer. But the part one can't stop replaying is how easily he expected me not to notice. Lena stayed quiet. Sometimes silence is a kind of permission, a place for truth to land. I opened the folder on her coffee table and let the paper spill out. Printed emails, highlighted bank statements, screenshots of messages between Evan and the mysterious RK woman. Lena's jaw tensed with every page. That man has no soul, she finally said, voice low and shaking. He's been eating at your table for 20 years and plotting a separate life behind your back. I nodded, but numbness sat heavy on my chest. Grief, when it begins, rarely feels like sadness. It feels like confusion wrapped around disbelief. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake on Lena's guest bed watching headlights smear across the ceiling. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Evan's face, his practiced calm, The easy way he dismissed me, the tiny twitch at the corner of his mouth when he lied. By dawn, something inside me had crystallized. I wasn't going back. Not to the marriage, not to the denial, not to the version of myself who made excuses for him. I needed help, real help. So the next morning, after Lena left for work, I made the most important phone call of my life. A divorce attorney named Sheila Bradford answered with a voice like tempered steel. "What's happening?" she asked. I hadn't meant to cry, but the moment I began describing Evan's messages, my voice cracked open. But Sheila didn't soften, she sharpened. "How long have you known? What evidence do you have? Are your finances separate? Do you feel safe returning to the home?" Her questions hit like spotlights, illuminating every blind corner of my life. By the time the call ended, I knew 3 things. First, I was not crazy. Second, Evan had crossed legal lines, not just moral ones. Third, I needed to act before he realized I knew. Sheila's final instructions were simple and terrifying. Do not confront him. Not yet. Gather everything. Then walk away on your terms. That sentence lit a fire in me. I went back to the house that afternoon, my pulse roaring as I unlocked the front door. The scent of Evan's aftershave still hung in the air. I moved through the house with quiet purpose. I photographed everything, took my documents, collected every piece of personal property that truly belonged to me. Not frantic, not emotional, strategic. This wasn't a woman fleeing, this was a woman reclaiming. When I opened our shared closet, my breath hitched. My sweaters hung neatly, my scarves folded with familiar care. But seeing them like that made something twist inside me, like I was looking at an exhibit titled "What a Woman Once Believed Her Life Was About." I packed my essentials. The rest could rot in this mausoleum of deception. Before leaving, I stood in our bedroom doorway, one hand gripping the frame, the other pressed over the ache in my chest. "We could have fixed anything," I whispered to no one. "If you had just asked." But he hadn't. He had chosen secrecy over honesty, condescension over partnership, convenience over loyalty. Some betrayals end long before they are discovered. I locked the door behind me and left the key beneath the potted fern on the porch. When I returned to Lena's, she didn't ask if I was sure. She could see it in my face, the calm that comes after a storm decides to move inward instead of outward. That evening, as we ate takeout and watched the sun sink behind the rooftops, I said quietly, "I'm filing tomorrow." Lena nodded. "Good. But Marla? This isn't just a divorce. This is you stepping back into your own life." I felt the truth of that land deep inside me. Later that night, scrolling through my phone, I saw a notification: joint account login attempt denied. It was Evan. The door of my old life wasn't just closing. It was sealing shut. I pulled the blanket over my legs, sinking into the sofa. The hurt was still there, raw, thick, vibrating beneath my ribs, but beneath it, strangely, beautifully, was resolve. The next morning, I walked into Sheila's office carrying the folder labeled Truth. Sheila flipped through the pages with a raised brow. "This is thorough. You've done half my job for me." I exhaled a breath that felt like it had been trapped for years. Sheila slid a document across the desk. "This is the petition. Once we file, everything changes. Are you ready?" "Ready? No, but prepared." "Yes." I signed. The pen glided across the paper, sealing the end of one life and the beginning of another. When I stepped outside, the sky had opened into brilliant blue. A soft breeze lifted my hair. For the first time in months, sunlight didn't feel heavy. It felt like a promise, but the universe, in its sharp-edged humor, wasn't done with me yet, because as I turned the corner, I saw someone standing by Sheila's building entrance. A woman smiling, pretty, too pretty. I didn't recognize her, until she spoke. "You must be Marla," she said brightly, tilting her head. "I'm Rachel." RK, the woman from the messages, the woman my husband had risked everything for. My heartbeat thudded once, hard. She smiled as if we were meeting under normal circumstances. "I figured we should talk," she said, and just like that, the world tilted again. But this time, I didn't tremble. This time, I was ready. "You think meeting the other woman was the breaking point, but trust me, it was only the spark." Because Rachel didn't come to apologize. She came with secrets Evan never meant for anyone to hear, secrets that turned my quiet heartbreak into a wildfire I could no longer contain. What she told me next didn't just confirm his betrayal, it revealed the lengths he'd go to protect himself, even if it meant destroying me in the process. And what I chose to do with that truth changed everything. If you're ready for the moment the story explodes, stay with me. The next chapter will shake you when the woman your husband betrayed you with smiles at you like she's offering help, not destruction. That's when you understand, betrayal isn't chaos. It's strategy, and you're standing in the crossfire. Rachel adjusted her purse strap as though we were meeting for casual brunch, not standing outside a divorce attorney's office. Her voice was soft, almost musical, but there was something calculated behind her eyes. I recognized that look instantly. Predatory kindness. Can we talk? She asked. I should have walked away. I should have protected what little stability I had left. But something in me, call it curiosity, call it fury, refused to let me retreat. Then talk, I said. Her smile tightened. Not here. There's a coffee shop down the block. I didn't trust her. I didn't want to hear her. Yet my feet moved anyway. Women over 50 often learn too late that we've been conditioned to make space for other people's comfort, even when they've destroyed ours. Not anymore. Still, I followed her. Inside the cafe, sunlight spilled across polished wood. People chatted over pastries, oblivious to the emotional grenade about to detonate at our table. We sat. She folded her hands neatly. I waited. I'm not here to fight, she said. I'm here because you deserve to know the truth. The truth. That word had become a razor these past few days, cutting deeper with every new revelation. I leaned back. Which version? Evan's? Yours? Or the one you two stitched together behind my back? Her cheeks flushed. I'm not proud of any of this. I didn't even know he was married at first. Lies. I saw it in her hesitation. I said nothing. She continued, voice tightening. He told me you were separated. He said you were living like roommates, that the marriage was over but you needed time. A slow burn crawled up my spine. Evan had rewritten our entire marriage to make himself the victim. She kept talking. I found out the truth about a month ago. I confronted him. He said he would leave you after the retreat. He told me he wanted a clean break. I laughed. Cold. Sharp. A clean break? Was that before or after he used my money to plan your hotel stays? Rachel's eyes flickered. She hadn't expected me to know that. Good, I didn't ask him to do that, she whispered, but you didn't stop him. A long silence settled between us. Finally, she exhaled. Marla. I came to warn you. That startled me. Warn me? She nodded slowly. Evan's panicking. After he realized you're seeking a divorce, he started talking like a man who's afraid he's losing everything. Not you, she hesitated, his reputation. His accounts. His position. Ah. There it was. Evan wasn't afraid of losing me. He was afraid of losing the life I built for him. Rachel leaned in. He's planning to hide assets. He asked me to help. I refused. A cold shiver moved through me. He's also preparing a narrative, she added. He's telling people you've been unstable, that you're exaggerating things, that he tried to work on the marriage, but you're vindictive. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, not because I was surprised, but because I wasn't. This was who Evan truly was, a man who didn't just betray you. He erased you. He reconstructed the truth to keep himself untouchable. Then Rachel said the sentence that dropped my world into a new orbit. He wants to convince the court you're emotionally unfit. I froze. I didn't cry. Didn't gasp. Didn't rage. I simply felt a deep, searing clarity settle into my bones. So he wants war, I said softly. Rachel swallowed hard. Yes. Something inside me, something hard and sharp, clicked into place. She reached across the table, her hand trembling. I'm sorry. I should have walked away the moment I found out he was lying to me too. But I did care about him. Of course you did, I said. That's what men like him count on. They groom empathy into a leash. Her eyes lowered. Why tell me all this? I finally asked. Because he asked me to testify against you, she whispered. And I couldn't do it. For the first time since she arrived, I believed her. A small, nearly invisible sliver of decency lived in her. But decency doesn't erase damage. I stood. Thank you for the warning. But you need to understand something. Her eyes lifted. You and I will never be on the same side. You were part of the destruction, whether you meant to be or not. But I appreciate the truth. She nodded, tears threatening but refusing to fall. I walked out of the cafe without looking back. Outside, the air felt different, sharper, charged. My pulse hammered with a terrifying kind of calm. Evan wanted to paint me as unstable. Oh, he had no idea what true stability looked like in a woman who had finally chosen herself. I called Sheila the moment I reached the corner. We need to move faster, I said. Sheila's voice sharpened instantly. What happened? Evan's planning to hide assets and rewrite the narrative. A pause, then, come to my office. Now. Within 20 minutes, I sat across from her again, sliding Rachel's information across the desk. Sheila adjusted her glasses. This is significant. If the other woman is willing to testify, we can dismantle every lie before he even tries to build it. She'll testify, I said. She's scared of him now. Sheila nodded. Good. But Marla, understand this, once we file injunctions and asset freezes, Evan will panic. Men like him don't handle consequences well. I know. I felt no fear, only resolve. Then let's proceed, Sheila said. We spent hours building a strategy, swift, sharp, airtight. By the time I stood to leave, I felt lighter than I had in months, not because things were easy, because things were clear. As I stepped outside, the sky had turned the color of late summer peach. The air was warm, the breeze steadied. I wasn't the same woman who sat in that kitchen believing my husband's thin excuses. I wasn't the woman who swallowed betrayal because confrontation felt too heavy. I wasn't even the woman who walked out with a folder of evidence. I had become something else, someone Evan should never have underestimated. If you think confronting the other woman was the climax, you're wrong. That was the prelude. Because the moment Evan realized I wasn't folding, wasn't crying, wasn't begging, wasn't letting him control the narrative, he made a move so reckless it exposed the darkest part of him. In the next chapter, his mask finally cracks, the truth spills out, and every lie he crafted comes crashing down. What he tried to do next is the kind of thing no woman should ever forgive. Stay with me, because what's coming will ignite every ounce of strength you've ever buried. The moment a man realizes the woman he underestimated has proof, power, and a plan greater than his lies, he doesn't become remorseful, he becomes dangerous. And Evan was about to prove it. I wish I could say Evan's unraveling happened slowly, like a ship taking on water. Instead, it happened all at once, loud, frantic, and with the desperation of a man accustomed to winning at all costs. It began the morning Sheila filed the emergency injunction. I was sitting at Lena's dining table, sipping lukewarm chamomile tea, when my phone buzzed. A number I recognized. Evan's office line. I ignored it. It buzzed again. Then again. Then switched to a blocked number. By the seventh call, Lena gave me a look that said she was 2 seconds from throwing my phone into the yard. Answer it, she muttered. Let him hear your silence. But I wasn't ready. Silence was powerful only when my heart wasn't shaking. So I powered the phone off and set it face down. 5 minutes later, Lena's doorbell rang. We stared at each other. No, I whispered. He wouldn't. But the pounding came again, louder this time. Lena marched to her window, peeked through the blinds, and turned back with fury in her eyes. It's him. My chest tightened. He found me? He must have followed your attorney paperwork somehow. Or he drove around hunting for your car. Lena clenched her jaw. Stay here. I'll deal with him. No, I said, rising slowly. I have to face him eventually. But when I stepped toward the door, my legs trembled. Not from fear of confrontation, but fear of seeing the man I once loved wearing the face of a stranger. Lena opened the door only a crack. Evan stood on the porch, face flushed, hair disheveled, breathing harshly through his nose. He didn't look like the polished consultant I'd been married to for decades. He looked unhinged. Where is she? He demanded. His voice wasn't loud. Loud would have been less terrifying. His voice was restrained, simmering, the way a person sounds right before they shatter. Lena held her ground. This is my home. You don't get to demand anything here. He ignored her, eyes darting past her shoulder until they locked onto mine. Marla. Hearing my name in his mouth felt wrong now, like a thief calling out the name of the person he'd robbed. I stepped into view, arms crossed. He exhaled shakily. We need to talk. No, I said quietly. You need to understand, communication now happens through my attorney. His nostrils flared. So that's how it's going to be? After everything I've done for you? My jaw tightened. Everything you've done to me, I corrected. He blinked, as if confused by the accuracy. Come outside. Please. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix, I said. There's only the truth. His composure cracked. You blindsided me with this legal ambush. Freezing accounts? Filing without a conversation? I wanted to laugh. Or scream. Or both. You erased me from your life long before I filed anything, I said, voice steadying. A muscle in his cheek twitched. You're being dramatic. Ah, there it was, the classic weapon men use to discredit women over 50 whose lives they've shattered. But I wasn't the same woman who accepted those words. I stepped forward, eyes locked on his. Evan, you told another woman you planned to leave me. You lied about our marriage. You used my money to court her. You plotted ways to hide funds. You chose this outcome. He stiffened. You shouldn't have gone through my messages. You shouldn't have written them, I replied. Lena made a soft sound, half scoff, half applause. Evan ran a hand through his hair. Look, I made mistakes. But you're overreacting. We can handle this privately. No lawyers. No drama. A low, humorless laugh escaped me. You're only calm because you think you still have control. His eyes darkened. I recognized that darkness. Control wasn't slipping, control was gone, and behind men like Evan, where control once lived, something uglier lurked. He leaned closer, voice dropping to a hiss. You're ruining my career. No, I said. You ruined your own career. I just stopped covering for you. His jaw clenched hard enough to tremble. You have no idea what you're doing. On the contrary, I said. For the first time in 20 years, I do. Evan's gaze flicked toward Lena, then toward the street as if calculating possible exits, physical, emotional, legal. Finally, he whispered, you'll regret this. A chill skated across my skin. Lena stepped between us. Get off my porch before I call the police. Something in Evan's expression shifted, a crack of vulnerability flickering beneath his anger. For a split second, he looked small, then he turned on his heel and stormed down the steps. We watched in silence as he climbed into his car and sped down the street. When he was gone, Lena closed the door slowly, leaned against it, and pressed a hand to her chest. Marla, she whispered, he's unraveling. I nodded, exhaling shakily. I know. But fear wasn't the only thing twisting inside me. There was also clarity. You cannot reason with a man who believes consequences are cruelty. You cannot negotiate with someone who thinks accountability is punishment. The only path forward was to keep going. To protect myself. To trust the evidence. To trust the woman I was becoming. Later that afternoon, Sheila called. Her voice came through the speaker like steel sharpened on purpose. Marla, we received notice that Evan attempted to transfer funds to a private account. The injunction blocked it. So he had tried. He had actually tried. Good, I said, but there's more, she added. He contacted a coworker and told them you were emotionally unstable. He's preparing an argument. I closed my eyes, letting the anger burn clean instead of messy. He wanted to weaponize my heart. He wanted to rewrite me. Let him try, I said softly. I have truth. I have records. I have Rachel. And we are going to use all of it, Sheila promised. That night, back at Lena's, I sat on the guest bed and stared at the ceiling. I wasn't scared anymore. I was awake, fully awake. For the first time in decades, I could feel the shape of my life returning to me, no longer distorted by his needs, his ego, his narrative. This wasn't destruction, this was excavation, reconstruction, reclamation. And I wasn't finished, not even close. If you think Evan's doorstep meltdown was the worst thing he'd do, you're not ready for what comes next. Because when men like him realize intimidation doesn't work, they switch tactics, and the next move he made wasn't just manipulative. It was catastrophic. In the next chapter, he crosses a line so unforgivable it forces me to choose between protecting my future and exposing every secret he's ever buried. And trust me, once you see how far he goes to rewrite the truth, you'll never look at quiet husbands the same way again. Stay with me. The real war is just beginning. You never truly know a man until he realizes you're no longer under his thumb. That's when his real nature emerges, bare, vicious, and willing to burn everything to keep control. The day after Evan appeared on Lena's porch like a storm with legs, the world felt strangely quiet. Too quiet. The kind of stillness that comes before something breaks. I woke early, sat near the small window in Lena's guest room, and watched neighbors walking their dogs, unaware that my life had become a battlefield with invisible landmines. I wrapped my hands around a warm mug of ginger tea and inhaled slowly. My heart wasn't racing anymore. Instead, it beat with a heavy steadiness, like it knew the fight ahead required endurance, not panic. By mid-morning, I headed to my temporary workspace in Lena's den. I wanted normalcy. Work. Art. Something that reminded me I existed outside Evan's chaos. But my phone vibrated, not with a call, but with an email alert from Sheila. Subject: immediate attention required. My breath stilled. I clicked. Marla, I received notice from the court this morning. Evan filed a petition requesting an emergency hearing. He claims you're mentally unstable, financially irresponsible, and attempting to ruin him out of spite. He's trying to gain temporary control of the marital funds. For a moment, everything around me blurred. He did it. He actually did it. He weaponized the oldest, laziest accusation ever flung at a woman. Unstable. Lena walked in just as I set the phone down. What happened? He called me unstable, I whispered. He filed it formally. The anger on Lena's face could have lit the room on fire. Oh, absolutely not. That man is playing with gasoline. I wanted to scream. Or throw something. But instead, I sat very still, letting the truth settle. Evan wasn't spiraling. He was strategizing. This wasn't a wounded husband. This was a man who feared consequences. I called Sheila immediately. She answered on the first ring. I'm already preparing our response. Do not panic. But I wasn't panicking, not anymore. What's his argument? I asked. Sheila sighed. He's claiming your withdrawal from the home is evidence of instability. He says you're acting erratically and fabricating accusations. So he's trying to gaslight the court. Exactly. A bitter laugh escaped me. Classic. He also submitted a statement from a coworker. My heart dropped. Which one? A man named Daniel. Claims you've always been overly emotional about Evan's schedule. I clenched my jaw. Evan fed him that narrative. Most likely. The faint rustle of papers came through the phone. Then Sheila spoke again, this time with real steel in her voice. But we have something Evan underestimated. Rachel, I whispered. Yes. Will she testify? She already agreed. Relief washed through me, not the soft kind, but the sharp kind that feels like a door slamming on someone dangerous. She'll tell the court everything, Sheila continued. That he lied to her. That he lied about you. That he planned to leave you quietly. That he asked her to help hide assets. My fingers tightened on the phone. When is the hearing? 3 days from today. 3 days. 3 days until I looked my husband in the eye in front of a judge and let his lies collapse under their own weight. I thanked Sheila and hung up. Lena placed a supportive hand on my shoulder. You okay? I exhaled a long, trembling breath. I think, for the first time in a long time, I actually am. But the universe wasn't done with me that afternoon. As I sorted through paperwork with meticulous care, a ping from my email arrived. A message from Evan against my better judgment. I opened it. Marla, we need to speak before this gets worse. You're blowing things out of proportion. I never wanted to hurt you. I'm willing to work on our marriage if you stop this legal mess. Let's sit down and talk like adults. I'm free tonight. Avani stared at the screen. Every sentence was a lie wrapped in faux diplomacy. He didn't want to talk. He wanted control. He wanted access. He wanted the narrative bent back into his hands. Lena read over my shoulder. Block him. I shook my head slowly. Not yet. Let him dig his own grave. That evening, I forwarded his email to Sheila. She replied 5 minutes later, good. This is more evidence of manipulation. Do not respond. I didn't, but part of me wondered what Evan looked like now, alone in our house, pacing circles around the life he thought he owned. Did he feel guilt? Did he feel fear? Did he feel anything at all? The next morning, I got my answer. He escalated. I woke to a barrage of messages, long, frantic paragraphs alternating between apologies, accusations, and barely veiled threats. You're being dramatic. You're destroying my life. You're not thinking clearly. You're making a huge mistake. Answer me. I know you're reading these. Do you really want to make an enemy out of me? That last one turned my blood cold. Men like Evan never imagined their wives could become something other than devoted. He underestimated the wrong woman. I forwarded every message to Sheila. Her response was instant. This is harassment. Save everything. We'll use it. My hands shook. Not with fear this time, but with an electric, rising strength. He had finally shown his true face, and it wasn't the face of a betrayed husband. It was the face of a man terrified he had lost the woman who held the keys to every lie he'd ever told. That afternoon, Sheila called again. Marla, she said, voice low. We have what we need. But I need you to prepare yourself emotionally. For what? For seeing him in court. He's going to perform. Men like him always perform. He'll be calm, wounded, polished, convincing. Judges love men who look like they're holding themselves together. I nodded slowly. And what about women like me? Her voice softened. Women like you terrify men like him. I inhaled deeply, steadily, purposefully. 3 days until the hearing. 3 days until battle, and I wasn't afraid. I was ready. If you think Evan's meltdown was his lowest point, wait until you see him in the courtroom. Because a man who's losing control doesn't show honesty, he shows performance. And what Evan tried to pull in front of the judge was a spectacle so manipulative it would have fooled anyone who didn't know the truth. But I did. And the moment Rachel walked through those doors, everything shifted. In the next chapter, the case explodes, alliances flip, and Evan's carefully crafted mask fractures in real time. Stay with me, because the courtroom is where the real reckoning begins. The courtroom didn't scare me. What scared me was knowing Evan believed he could stroll in, smile politely, and convince a judge I was the unstable one. He truly thought charm beat evidence. The morning of the hearing, Lena insisted on driving me. You need support, she said, and someone to keep you from punching him. I'm not punching anyone, I replied, but part of me wished I could. The courthouse rose ahead like a monument to truth, cold, towering, indifferent. I walked up the steps with measured breaths, every inhale steady, every exhale deliberate. I felt older than my years, heavier in a way that wasn't painful but powerful. Wisdom has weight. Sheila waited inside wearing a navy suit sharp enough to cut through Evan's entire defense. You ready? She asked. I've been ready since the day he erased me from our life. She nodded once. Then let's bury his narrative. We stepped into the courtroom. Evan was already there, and my God, he looked rehearsed, hair trimmed. Suit pressed. Face composed in that earnest, respectable expression he had mastered years ago. The kind of face that made strangers assume he held doors open and never raised his voice. He turned, and the moment his eyes locked on mine, something flickered. Not remorse, recognition. He recognized the woman who no longer feared him. He tried to smile. I gave him nothing. The judge entered. Everyone rose. My palms tingled, not from nerves, but from something colder, sharper, anticipation. Evan's attorney stood first. A tall man with a voice polished from years of smoothing over wealthy men's mistakes. Your Honor, he began, my client is deeply concerned about his wife's recent behavior. My wife. He still claimed ownership even in separation. Evan adopted a solemn expression, eyes cast downward, hands clasped as if praying for mercy. The performance would have impressed me years ago. Now it made my stomach turn. She left their home abruptly with no explanation, his attorney continued. She's acting irrationally and spreading false allegations. My client fears she is emotionally compromised. He seeks temporary protection of the marital assets until her stability can be evaluated. Evaluated.as though I were a defective appliance needing inspection. When his attorney finished, Evan dabbed an imaginary tear from the corner of his eye. Lena whispered behind me, "He deserves an award." Sheila rose. "Your Honor," she said, tone cool as winter steel, "my client did leave the marital home. But she left because she discovered extensive deception, financial misconduct, and emotional manipulation committed by her husband. We have documented proof." The judge leaned forward. "Proceed." Sheila began placing printed exhibits on the table, bank statements, hotel receipts, email threads, and most damning, the messages Rachel had forwarded. Evan shifted in his seat. The first crack in his armor, his attorney objected, claiming the screenshots lacked verification. Sheila smiled faintly, the kind of smile predators make before pouncing. "We anticipated that." The doors opened. Rachel entered. The room changed temperature. Her heels clicked softly across the floor as she approached the witness stand, head held high. She did not look at Evan. She didn't even glance his way. That alone was a devastating blow. Evan paled. Rachel was sworn in. Sheila asked the first question gently, giving Rachel space to steady her voice. "Did Evan represent himself as married when you met?" Rachel swallowed. "No. He said they lived like roommates. He said the marriage had been over for years." Whispers rippled through the courtroom. Sheila continued, "When did you discover the truth?" "About a month ago. I confronted him. He admitted everything." "Did he ever discuss money with you?" Rachel nodded. "He asked if I could help him move funds. He said he needed to protect his finances before Marla did something crazy." My fingers curled, whether from fury or validation, I couldn't tell. Sheila pressed, "Did he ask you to testify against my client?" "Yes. He wanted me to say she was unstable." I refused. Evan's attorney stood abruptly. "Objection." "Overruled," the judge said sharply. "Let her finish." Rachel looked right at the judge, voice steady now. "I didn't come forward to hurt him. I came forward because Marla deserved the truth. And because he asked me to commit fraud." The courtroom went silent, completely silent. Even the air seemed to still. Evan's attorney cleared his throat, tried to recover. "Your Honor, this is," the judge held up a hand. "I've heard enough. Sit." Saturday. Evan looked broken, not from guilt, but from exposure. Mask gone. Performance collapsing. The judge turned to me. "Mrs. Jennings, do you wish to speak?" I rose slowly, steady, contained, older, wiser, stronger. "Yes, Your Honor." I faced the judge, but my words were meant for Evan. "For years, I believed loyalty meant endurance. I excused lies. I minimized wounds. I convinced myself marriage required shrinking to fit someone else's expectations. But what my husband calls instability, what he labels irrational, is simply the moment I finally stopped allowing myself to be erased." Evan's mouth tightened. I continued, voice unwavering. "Leaving our home wasn't emotional breakdown. It was survival. Filing for divorce wasn't spite. It was self-respect. And everything he's accused me of being? It's really what he feared I would become, a woman telling the truth." Saturday. The judge let silence settle before speaking. "Here is my ruling." Evan straightened like a soldier awaiting praise. "It didn't come. Given the evidence presented, Mr. Jennings' claims of instability lack any credible basis. His attempt to portray his wife as irrational appears to be a strategic manipulation. The injunction on marital funds will remain. Mrs. Jennings acted reasonably." A rush of breath filled the room, mine, Lena's, and even Rachel's. Evan blinked slowly, as if the words didn't compute. The judge continued, "Furthermore, this court strongly advises Mr. Jennings to cease all harassment or attempts at intimidation. Any further misconduct will carry consequences." Then the gavel fell. A sound like closure. Evan remained seated long after people began filing out. When he finally lifted his eyes to me, I saw everything he'd tried to hide: fear, loss, and the painful realization that the woman he dismissed as fragile was the one holding the truth. I didn't look away. He needed to see who I had become, the version of me he could never again manipulate. If you think Evan accepted the judge's ruling with dignity, you're giving him too much credit. Men like him don't go quietly, they scramble, claw, and drag anyone down with them. And what he did after that hearing wasn't just petty. It was vindictive. He tried one final tactic, and trust me, it wasn't legal, moral, or remotely sane. In the next chapter, he crosses from manipulation into desperation, and desperation is where dangerous men reveal their truest selves. Stay with me. The calm after this storm is only temporary, and the next wave hits harder than ever. Some men accept defeat. Others ignite chaos when their lies collapse. Evan chose chaos, and the scorched earth he left behind revealed just how far he was willing to fall. After the hearing, I expected silence, maybe sulking, maybe simmering humiliation. What I didn't expect was escalation. The judge's ruling had sliced through Evan's narrative like a blade. The moment he realized charm couldn't save him, something inside him cracked. I could feel it even without seeing him. Some men crumble gracefully. Evan was not one of them. 2 days after court, I returned to Lena's after a long meeting with Sheila. We'd begun building the financial case, item by item, lie by lie. I was exhausted but steady, the way a woman becomes steady only after crossing through fire. When we walked through the door, Lena paused mid-step, her eyes narrowed. "Marla, why is your phone blowing up?" I glanced at the screen. Missed calls, dozens, all unknown numbers, all within the last hour. A dread I couldn't name crept beneath my ribs. Lena grabbed her own phone. "Check your email." My stomach dropped as I opened my inbox. The top message froze me in place. Subject: concerned for you from multiple women I had never met. The body of the email was short. "Marla, we've seen the posts. Are you okay? Please reach out." Posts? My skin prickled. I opened another message. Then another. Each one contained the same sentiment: confusion, concern, shock. "What posts?" I whispered. Lena's phone dinged. She clicked, went pale. "Oh my God." She turned the screen toward me. There it was. Evan's desperate, pathetic, last-ditch grenade. A long public post on a community forum, one used frequently by neighbors, local parents, and professionals. The post began innocently enough, cloaking itself in faux vulnerability. "I'm heartbroken sharing this, but my wife has been struggling emotionally for a long time." My vision blurred. Lena kept reading aloud. "She ran away from our home, drained accounts, and is now making dangerous accusations about me. If anyone sees her behaving erratically, please let me know. I'm worried for her safety." He painted me as unstable again, but now publicly. Worse, he included a photo. A photo taken last year during a charity event. I was smiling, hair pulled back, wearing a soft blue dress. A picture of a woman he'd just accused of unraveling. Lena threw her phone onto the table. "He's trying to build a public record. He's trying to manipulate witnesses for the divorce." My knees buckled. I sat heavily on the couch. Inside me, something trembled, not fear, but a deep, ancient rage. A rage born from every woman who'd ever been called emotional while a man weaponized lies. Lena paced. "We need to tell Sheila right now." I nodded, still staring at the screen. "This isn't desperation anymore. This is retaliation." Sheila answered on the second ring. When she heard what Evan had done, she didn't shout. She didn't gasp. Her voice simply turned razor sharp. "Marla," she said, "take screenshots of everything. Every comment. Every share. He just handed us a gift wrapped in recklessness." "A gift?" I choked out. "Yes. He publicly defamed you. This is actionable. And it further supports the harassment claim." Lena snorted. "So his own stupidity becomes our ammunition?" "Exactly," Sheila replied. "By trying to control the narrative, he strengthened yours." I ended the call and immediately began capturing every detail: the post, the reactions, the timestamps. My hand steadied with every screenshot. Rage was turning into purpose, grief into resolve. Halfway through gathering evidence, another message appeared, from Evan. "You've forced my hand. I had to tell people the truth so they can help you. You're sick, Marla. Let me fix this. Come home and we can talk." I stared at the glowing words. "Sick, let me fix this, come home." Lies piled on manipulation, stacked upon gaslighting. The audacity made my breath hitch. I handed the phone to Lena. "Look at this." She didn't read it quietly. She shouted it aloud like an incantation being expelled from her home. That man is a world-class manipulator. I know, I whispered, but then I felt it, an unexpected sensation blooming inside my chest, pity not for him, for the version of me who once believed him. That night, I barely slept. I lay awake in Lena's guest room staring at the ceiling, letting memory wash over me. The early years, warmth, hope, partnership. The middle years, compromise, bending, shrinking. The later years, distance, dismissiveness, invisibility. The truth hit me like a tide. I had been fading long before he betrayed me. He had not simply broken our marriage. He had been eroding it, drop by drop. With every selfish act he wrapped in charm, and now he was drowning in the consequences. The next morning, Sheila requested an emergency meeting. We arrived at her office, the three of us, me, Lena, and a folder of evidence growing thicker by the hour. Sheila didn't waste time. Marla, we're filing for an additional protective order, she said. What he posted is harassment and defamation. I nodded. But there's more, she added, sliding a document across the desk. My pulse quickened as I read. Evan had attempted to contact my former clients, the same ones whose design work had carried our household through lean years he pretended didn't exist. He told them I had emotional issues and might produce unstable work. He tried to sabotage my livelihood. My throat tightened. He went after my career? Yes, Sheila said. This shows intent to harm you financially. Judges do not tolerate that. Lena gripped my shoulder. He's unraveling, Marla. He's terrified. Terrified men do foolish, dangerous things, but terrified women, we become unstoppable. Sheila leaned forward. His behavior is cornering him legally. If he continues, we will request sanctions. I nodded slowly. Good. As we left the office, I felt something shift inside me, not breaking, not shattering, but settling. Like the final pieces of myself were clicking back into place after years of distortion. Outside, the sky held a soft gray hue, the kind that makes colors look deeper. Marla, Lena said gently, are you okay? I took a long breath. I'm angry, I said. But I'm also awake. And it was true, awake in a way I hadn't been in decades, awake to manipulation, awake to truth, awake to my own strength. When we reached the car, I glanced back toward the courthouse. A place I once feared, now a place where I reclaimed myself. I wasn't done, not by a long shot. Evan wanted war. He had finally chosen the right opponent. If you think Evan's public smear campaign was the worst blow he could deliver, brace yourself. Because when public manipulation fails, men like him switch to private sabotage, and his next move nearly shattered everything I had left. In the next chapter, he crosses a line so dangerous, so calculated, it forces me to confront the darkest truth about our marriage. And for the first time, I stop reacting and start striking back. Stay with me. The real battle for my freedom, for my future, begins in the next part. And you won't believe what he tries next. Some betrayals hit like storms. Others slip quietly into your life, pretending to be concerned, until you realize the hand reaching toward you is the same one that tried to destroy you. I should have known Evan wasn't finished. Men like him rarely accept consequences. They look for loopholes, weak spots, cracks in the armor of the women they once controlled. His smear campaign had failed. His attempts to paint me as unstable had collapsed under evidence. His carefully curated mask was leaking, but desperation has stages. Stage 1, denial. Stage 2, fury. Stage 3, the most dangerous one, reconciliation disguised as apology. It started with a knock on Lena's door one gray morning, the kind of morning when the world feels muted, as if waiting for something to happen. Lena peeked through the blinds and cursed under her breath. He's back. My stomach tightened, but not with fear, not anymore. With exhaustion. I was tired of the games, the drama, the constant shifting of Evan's tactics. I walked to the door and opened it before she could stop me. Evan stood on the porch holding a paper bag, his eyes glassy, shoulders drooping. He looked nothing like the polished man from the courtroom. He looked unshaven, unsteady, almost trembling. Marla, he said softly, please, don't shut me out. I crossed my arms, every muscle still. What do you want, Evan? He lifted the bag awkwardly. Your favorite muffins. From that bakery you love. I remembered the kind you say what you came to say, I interrupted. He flinched. Then, it happened. His entire demeanor shifted in a breath, his voice shook. I don't know who I am without you. I stared, emotionless. This was an act. A last-ditch illusion. Men like Evan didn't lose themselves, they lost control. He stepped closer, lowering his voice to a pitiful whisper. I messed up. I panicked. I shouldn't have posted anything online. I shouldn't have defamed me? I asked. His eyes darted away. It wasn't defamation. It was worry. Worry doesn't require lying. He swallowed hard. You blindsided me. You left. I felt abandoned. Abandoned, spoken like a man who believed he was entitled to my presence, my silence, my tolerance. I kept my tone calm. Evan, you lost the right to claim abandonment the moment you chose to betray me. He pressed a hand against the doorframe, voice cracking. Marla. I know I hurt you. But people make mistakes. Mistakes for forgetting anniversaries or burning toast, plotting deception, gaslighting your spouse, weaponizing mental health stigmas, not mistakes, choices. Lena appeared behind me, arms folded like a warrior queen. Evan, she said sharply, leave before I record this. He stiffened. I just want to talk. You want access, she shot back, his jaw tightened. There it was. The shift. The crack in the act. I stepped between them. Go home, Evan. Stop contacting me. Stop showing up. All communication goes through Sheila. His shoulders slumped in defeat, but his eyes hardened. This isn't over, he whispered. Then he walked away, the bag of muffins still dangling from his hand. Hours later, after I sent Sheila a recap, she called me with a tone that made goosebumps rise along my arms. Marla, she said carefully, we received something troubling. My pulse quickened. What is it? It appears Evan attempted to access your personal financial accounts this morning. A chill traveled down my spine. But he doesn't have my passwords. He tried to reset them. My breath caught. This wasn't reconciliation. It was espionage. He also contacted your former employer, she continued, claiming he needed copies of tax statements. My fingers tightened around the phone. He's trying to get into my financial history. Yes, she said. He wants leverage. I felt my body go cold, not frightened, but crystal clear. Evan had switched to stage 4 sabotage. Is this illegal? I asked. Sheila exhaled. Highly questionable. And we're documenting every attempt. Good, let the record show the truth. That afternoon, I sat alone in Lena's guest room staring at the window, letting the weight of everything settle. The glass held the faint reflection of a woman I barely recognized, older, wiser, harder, yes, but also, brighter. Before I could get lost in thought, Lena knocked softly. Can I come in? I nodded. She perched on the edge of the bed. He's spiraling. I know. You okay? I'm processing. Lena sighed. You know what's wild? I used to think Evan was charming. Polished. Responsible. I smiled wryly. Most manipulators look shiny at first. She nudged my shoulder gently. You're handling this with so much strength. I hope you see that. I did, finally, I did. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with a message from an unfamiliar number. This is Officer Monroe. Please call me as soon as possible regarding an incident reported by your husband. My blood simmered. Evan's next tactic, stage 5, weaponizing authority. I called immediately. An officer answered with a firm but polite voice. Mrs. Jennings, your husband contacted us. He claimed you may be a danger to yourself. My eyes closed. There it was, the ultimate act of control disguised as concerned. I inhaled deeply. Officer, my husband is retaliating because he's facing consequences. I have a protective order in process, and I'm represented by an attorney. The officer listened carefully. Understood, ma'am. Based on his tone, we suspected there might be more to the story. We're simply required to follow protocol. I appreciate that, I said. I'm safe. I'm calm. I'm staying with a friend. I have legal support. He asked a few more routine questions, then ended with a surprising reassurance and Mrs. Jennings? We see this kind of situation more often than you'd think. You're handling it the right way. When I hung up, a strange mix of fury and validation washed over me. Evan's manipulation wasn't creative. It wasn't intelligent. It was predictable. I walked into the living room where Lena sat folding laundry. Well, she asked. He called the police, I said. Her jaw dropped. Then she stood abruptly, hands on hips. That man is a walking disaster. I sank into the sofa. He's scared. And that makes him reckless. Yes, I said. But it also makes him visible. She glanced at me. Meaning? His desperation is exposing him faster than we could. She didn't respond at first. Then she nodded slowly. So he's undoing himself. Exactly. We spent the evening watching an old movie, eating leftover pasta, letting the quiet settle. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel hunted. I felt prepared not just to survive. To win. When the credits rolled, Lena turned toward me. You know something, she said. You're not fighting for your marriage anymore. I know. You're fighting for your future. I nodded, and Evan can't touch that. If you think Evan calling the police was his final attempt to regain control, you're underestimating the lengths desperate men will go when power slips through their fingers. Because his next move wasn't just manipulative, it was catastrophic. He crossed into a territory that forced the court, the law, and even his own family to confront the truth he'd fought so hard to hide. In the next chapter, everything he built collapses in a single unforgettable moment. Make sure you're here for it, because the fall of a man who thought he owned me is a sight you'll never forget. When a man realizes he's lost control, he doesn't always go quiet, sometimes he sets fire to everything around him. But flames reveal truth, and mine exposed the end of his illusions. 3 days after the police call, I woke with a feeling I couldn't name, an eerie stillness, like the air before a storm. Lena was already in the kitchen brewing strong coffee. Her expression told me something was wrong even before she spoke. Marla, she whispered, you need to sit. My chest tightened. What happened? She turned her phone toward me. A headline glowed across the screen. Not a national news outlet, thank God, but a local online journal that specialized in community scandals. The title stung like a slap. Local consultant under investigation for misuse of client funds. Below it, Evan's picture, press conference smile, confident posture, polished suit, now repurposed as the face of someone being exposed. Lena's voice trembled with anger. This article says his company is reviewing irregularities in his expense reports. Someone leaked everything. My breath caught. Rachel. It had to be Rachel. Or one of Evan's coworkers. Finally connecting dots. Either way, something major had shifted. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Sheila, call me immediately. I stepped into the hallway and dialed. She answered on the first ring. It's happening, she said. His firm opened an internal ethics review. I leaned against the wall. Because of the receipts? Because of everything, she confirmed. The hotel stays. The personal dinners. The attempts to falsify billing. The asset maneuvering. A wave of emotion crashed over me, relief, disbelief, sorrow, and something deeper, heavier. Justice, not revenge, not spite. Justice, Sheila continued, this investigation will impact the divorce. Judges do not look kindly on financial misconduct. I closed my eyes. What do I do next? You stay calm, she said. His consequences are finding him without your involvement. Before I could respond, a small sound at the door made me turn. Lena stood there, brows raised, tapping the screen of her phone. There's more. She handed it over. A message from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Evan's sister, Elise. Marla, I am so sorry. I had no idea what he'd been doing. Please call me when you can. Our parents are devastated. He needs help, but you don't deserve any part of this mess. I stared at the words. For so long, Evan's family had turned a blind eye to his behavior, excusing, minimizing, chalking everything up to stress. Now, they couldn't look away, and for the first time, I felt no guilt. Not an ounce. Later that afternoon, Sheila called again. Evan's attorney requested a meeting, she said. They want to negotiate. I nearly laughed. Now? Yes, she replied, because he's losing ground fast. We met at the firm that evening. The conference room felt colder than usual, polished, impersonal, rigid. Evan sat with his attorney at the far end of the table. He looked deflated. Tired. Face drawn. Eyes hollow, not broken from heartbreak, broken from consequence. He glanced at me, and I saw something new in his expression, fear mixed with bitterness, two emotions often born from the same wound. His attorney cleared his throat. Mr. Jennings is open to resolving this matter amicably. Sheila folded her hands neatly. Meaning? He is willing to concede the division of assets. And he would like to avoid further litigation. Sheila raised a brow. We'll need specifics. His previous actions make general promises meaningless. His attorney slid a typed document across the table. Here. Sheila read quietly. Then she handed it to me. Evan was offering every term I originally asked for, every single one. No counters. No negotiations. No conditions. I lifted my eyes slowly. Why now? Evan swallowed. I can't keep doing this. I waited. I'm losing everything, he whispered. I felt no triumph, just truth. You didn't lose everything, I said quietly. You threw it away. Something flickered across his face. Regret? Shame? A memory of who he once pretended to be? I would never know, because that wasn't my responsibility anymore. Sheila gathered the papers. We accept. File it. Evan closed his eyes, and in that moment, I realized something important. I wasn't mourning him anymore. I was mourning the version of myself who once loved him. The divorce became official weeks later. The final stamp came quietly, like the closing of a book after the last chapter ends. Not loud, not dramatic, simply, final. I walked out of the courthouse alone, head lifted high. The sun warmed my face. The breeze carried a softness I hadn't felt in years. Lena was waiting by the bench with 2 cups of coffee. You're free, she whispered, handing me one. Yes, I said, letting the word settle into my bones. I am. That evening, I returned to my small apartment for the first night entirely as my own woman, no longer a wife, no longer a target, no longer someone holding herself together for someone else, just me. A full person. A whole story. A new beginning. I made tea, curled up near the window, and watched the city lights blink awake. Somewhere out there, Evan was sitting in the ruins of the life he built on lies. Somewhere else, Rachel was rebuilding her own life, healing in the aftermath of a storm she walked into unknowingly. But here, in this quiet room, I felt strength return to me in slow, steady waves. I wasn't broken, I was transformed, not because of what Evan did to me, but because of what I did after. I stood up. I protected myself. I reclaimed my identity. I grew into someone wiser, stronger, more self-assured than the version of me he tried to diminish. If my story teaches anything, let it be this. The moment you stop shrinking to fit someone else's comfort, you reclaim your power. Never let anyone convince you that your voice is too much, your pain is dramatic, or your intuition is unstable. Women over 50 carry lifetimes of wisdom. Don't let anyone rewrite your truth. If this journey touched you, if it reminded you of your own strength, if it opened a new way of seeing betrayal, healing, and rebirth, hit subscribe, follow this channel, and stay with me. More stories are coming, stories that remind every woman she deserves freedom, dignity, and a future written by her own hand.